Hey guys, welcome back. Part 2 of the AR-15 buy or build. In the first video, we talked about manufactured weapons that are already put completely together. You pick them up at the gun store, at your shop, or if you're a local FFL, you get them in a box, you take them home, you pull the gun out of the box, and hopefully you disassemble it, clean everything, oil it, put it back together using proper procedures, and do proper function checks before you go shoot the weapon. That's in my best hopes that you're doing that. Some people don't do that. They just take them right straight out, load a magazine up, and go shoot, which terrifies me, but it actually happens. Anyway, second video is on building your own rifle, and I'm going to talk about certain things, specifically the tools you're going to need to put the rifle together. You absolutely do need these. You may argue and say, well, I don't need these. You may already have a lot of these tools in your shop or in your garage or whatever. If you have them, cool. If you don't have them, here's the list. It's 5 different items that you're going to need in order to put a rifle together. Some are specific to the AR-15, so pay attention. All these tools that I'm showing you right here are off of Amazon. You can order them and you can have them at your house probably by the end of the week, 2 to 3 days, worst case scenario, especially if you have Prime. And these are not high-end tools by any means, but they're going to function properly and function well enough for you to put together your precision weapon with precision tools. First thing I'm going to talk about is a vise. You need a vise. Okay, the vise demonstrated here is a table mounted. You clamp it onto a table, and I use the word table loosely. Do not put this on your wife's kitchen table or your dining room table. Life for you will suck for weeks and months, and you'll never hear the end of it. Don't do it. So the next thing that you're going to need, this is a 3-piece kit, and it is worth its weight in gold. Okay, the bottom left block is actually the lower receiver fixture that goes into, you clamp it into the vise and you slide on the lower receiver in order to do work on the lower receiver. You can put it in vertically or horizontally. Sometimes I will put it in horizontally in order to put detents in and things like that. It's better to have something going down instead of at an angle when you're putting detents and small springs and things like that. But you can put it up where it's vertical, and it'll hold the lower receiver very well. You'll be able to do a lot of the things in assembly of the weapon with that block specifically on the lower receiver. The next block over to the right is a clamshell, and that clamps around the upper receiver. Cool thing about this one is it allows to be used not only on the A4, which is the flat top AR-15 upper receiver. You can use it on an A1 or A2 that have the integrated carry handles on them. The A1 has the old sight style, the A2 has the fully adjustable sight, but that clamshell thing will work on both. And it clamps into the vise. You might want to double check and make sure the vise you're ordering is going to be wide enough to fit that clamshell. If not, it's going to suck. I just put these up here for reference, things that you're going to need. Finally, the third thing is the armor's wrench that's up on top. The left side of it has the part where you would put on a barrel nut for an A1 or A2 style barrel nut, the standard barrel nut, not a free float handguard barrel nut, but the 2-piece clamshell type handguards we're talking about. It has a location point for the torque wrench, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, to torque down to spec the components on the gun itself. And over to the right, there's 2 different styles of castle nut wrenches. The top one has got the 3 little points. It's got the 2 from the side. It's got the 1 at the bottom. That's what you would use on the modern style castle nut for the buffer tube. The hook on the end with the little pin at the bottom, that's for the old style, I think it's the A1 style. I've slept since I've done a lot of this stuff. But yeah, it would be for the A1 style. The A1 style castle nut didn't have the little notches in it. It had 1 hole in it. You put that on there and you torque it down to spec. The next thing you're going to need is going to be the torque wrench. You need a 1/2-inch torque wrench, and the one that's showing here is, it goes from, I believe it's 10 pounds up to 170 pounds. Now these are foot pounds. These are not inch pounds. Your barrel nut and your castle nut for your buffer are going to be foot pounds. They are not inch pounds. So when you're torquing things down, torque them to spec. But yeah, you have to have a torque wrench, and this one's not too awful expensive, and you'll have one, and you can use it. I have 3 different sizes. I have a 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 1/4 inch torque wrenches. And every time you use them, make sure you take the tension off of them. The next thing you're going to need is the torque screwdriver. You can actually set the torque screwdriver for inch pounds. So a lot of the fasteners that are going to be on the AR15, specifically the handguard, are going to be in inch pounds. You don't want to use foot pounds. If it says 20 inch pounds, you want it to be 20 inch pounds. 20 foot pounds, you're going to be breaking shit. You do not want to be doing that. So got to have that. And finally, the punch set. I use punch sets more than anything else when working on weapons and things like that. I personally like to use brass punches when disassembling and assembling because I don't want to mark things up on somebody else's rifle. My own personal stuff, I'm not too worried about it, but I don't want somebody to bring their rifle to me and I take it apart and I scratch their lower receiver or their upper receiver using a steel punch. This punch set has roll pin holders, roll pin punches, it has standard punches, it has a little hammer with it, and it also includes 2, I think they're nylon, they're either plastic or nylon punches that you can use when you're pushing things out, things like that. It's a lot easier to use the brass or plastic so you don't mark shit up. So you got those 5 different things, and we're looking at right about $150 for all the tools that you're going to need to put your weapon together. So take that $150 away from that $1,500 that you're going to budget for that rifle that you want to build, and that leaves you with $1,350. Okay, we're back. Now we're going to talk about all the parts that you're going to need in order to build your rifle. We've already established that you need the tools in order to do it with, and you're about $150 into those tools, right? I can't stress enough the fact that you need to have some of these tools in order to put this rifle together properly. If you don't, then you stand to have issues because you're not assembling it properly, you're not using the correct tools, and you're probably going to tear something up. And then you're going to have to bring it to somebody like me that's going to charge you money to fix it. So be smart, spend the money now instead of having to spend a whole lot of money later on. Anyway, so I broke this down into how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do the lower receiver group and then the upper receiver group. I'll talk about all the components in the lower receiver group as well as the pricing tiers. There's low, mid, and high prices. I'm not including any special items or anything like that. These are typically just mil-spec parts. I may talk a little bit about some of the other features that you can get on some of these things. Same way with the upper receiver group stuff. I'm not talking about quality. I'm not talking about anything else other than just the pricing points. We can talk more about the quality of stuff in later videos. You just have to let me know what you want to talk about, what you want to hear about. So anyway, I'm going to start with the lower receiver group. In the lower receiver group, you're going to have a stripped lower receiver. You're going to have a buffer tube assembly kit. You're going to have a lower parts kit. And you're going to have a buttstock. You need those 4 things in order to have a lower receiver. So let's talk about the stripped lower receiver. So I'm showing examples of the stripped lower receiver. The low price point is going to be $50 to $90. The mid price point is going to be $90 to $299. And then the high price point is going to be $299 plus. All those prices will reflect on some of the features that the lower receiver has on it or doesn't have on it. The examples I'm showing is a Palmetto State Armory lower, an Aero Precision lower, and then a Radian ADAC. The Radian ADAC is the $200+ lower receiver, but it comes with all the components and parts in it, so you don't have to worry about the lower parts kit that's in it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the buffer tube assembly. The buffer tube assembly will come with the buffer tube, the buffer spring, the buffer, the receiver plate, and then the castle nut. All that will come into the buffer tube assembly kit. Low tier is going to be 50 to 80, mid tier is 80 to 120, and the high is going to be 120 plus. Now these are dollars. So You can see this is going to start adding up pretty quick. Okay, now let's talk about the lower parts kit. The lower parts kit is going to, I'm going to roll a picture in now. That's a mil-spec lower parts kit. It would come with a grip. It would come with all the components that you see there, the fire control group, the trigger, and everything, as well as the trigger guard. The pricing points on the lower parts kit is starting with the low tier at $60, going up to about $100. The mid tier is going to be $100 up to about $120, and then the high tier is going to be $120 plus. All that will depend on the components that you have in that lower parts kit. Some of them come with, Magpul furniture, like a Magpul grip or a Bravo Company grip or a B5 grip or something like that. Even Daniel Defense, sometimes they have, some companies will sell the lower parts kits with Daniel Defense furniture. And then finally, the buttstock. The buttstock itself, they start for the low tier, they're anywhere from $20 to $50. The mid tier is $50 to $100, and then the high tier is $100 and up. And the examples that I'm showing is an M4 buttstock, a typical M4 buttstock. The mid tier would be a Magpul, CTR, MOE, something like that. And then the high tier stuff would be the $100 plus, and they can get really expensive really quick. Okay, so we talked about the lower receiver group, the tiers, the pricing, and the components that's in it. So now let's talk about the upper receiver group. Now the upper receiver group is going to take a little bit more time because there's more things that's involved with it. As I said in the first video talking about the manufactured weapons, the best thing that you can do for your rifle is going to be the barrel and the bolt carrier group. If you have a really good barrel and a really good bolt carrier group, then everything else, remember I was talking about building a sandwich, if you have good meat and cheese, everything else, the accoutrements for the sandwich, like the lettuce, tomato, the other things, that's some of the other things that we're talking about. So talk about the upper receiver group. We're going to start out with a stripped upper receiver, and this example I'm showing, that's just a mil-spec upper receiver, 7075 T6 aluminum, and they typically start out in the low tier price point. I've seen them down as low as $60 up to $100 in the low tier. The mid tier is going to be $100 to $200, and then the high tier is $200 plus. And really the only difference between them is the name that you buy them from. If it's a mil spec, then it's going to have the M4 feed ramps. It's going to be marked on the front of the lower receiver above the gas tube hole with a little M4 and Picatinny rail and everything else. And I won't go into that. That's another video. But yeah, they're all pretty much the same thing. It just depends on how much you want to spend and if you are stuck on a specific brand or anything like that. Okay, we're going to move on to the upper parts kit. Now, the upper parts kit is minimalistic compared to a lower parts kit. It's basically only has the dust cover and the forward assist and the components of that. They're not too awful expensive. Low price point is $25 to $40, mid price point is $40 to $75, and then the high price point is $75 plus. And the reason why the price points increase on that is depending on the type of dust cover that you get. You can get the polymer ones, or you can get really cool ones that are engraved, and if you're into that kind of stuff, it's going to cost you more money for the cool factor. Okay, now the next thing, which is kind of a broad spectrum of componentry, is the handguard. And remember, the rifle we're talking about is a 16-inch barrel rifle, and it has an M-lock handguard, a free float M-lock handguard. So the handguards I'm going to show you here are the low price point of $60 to $150. The mid price point, the M-lock, they're like $150 to $299. The high price point, which would be the Daniel Defense M-lock that I'm showing you there, the Risk 3, they are $299 plus in some cases. And a lot of other manufacturers make them. It depends on what you want and how much you want to spend. Okay? So we're going to move on to the bolt carrier group. Now, the bolt carrier group, there are companies that make bolt carrier groups. As long as it's mil spec, I don't have an issue with them. I'm more into the phosphate chrome lined bolt carrier group. If you like the nitride, that's fine. I have nitride bolt carrier groups. I don't have any issues with them, but they're all mil spec, and I've gauged them out, and I know that they work. I'm not really impressed by the low weight bolt carrier groups or the titanium bolt carrier groups. The ones that I'm showing here is, the first one is a mil spec. It is phosphate coated chrome lined. The next one is chrome plated, or that could be TIN. And then finally, the expensive one is a titanium bolt carrier group. And I don't understand the necessity for a titanium bolt carrier group, but it's your money and you spend it the way you want. Okay, so the price points on the bolt carrier groups are like this. They're $70 to $125. They can be $125 to $225. And then when you get into the higher price point, they are $225 to $600 in some cases. Some of the bolt carrier groups are ridiculous priced. Remember, we have a $1,350 budget to build a rifle. If you're buying a $600 bolt carrier group, everything else is going to be shit that you're putting in your rifle. So you want to avoid that like the plague. Now, the next thing is the barrel. Let's talk about the bolt carrier groups and the barrels being the meat and the cheese of your sandwich. The barrel, 16-inch barrel, low tier price is $75 to $200. The mid tier is $200 to $280. And then the high tier is $280 to about $710. And the examples of the barrels that I'm showing you, the low tier one would be like the Ballistic Vantage, the Faxon, the Roscoe. You get into the mid tier, they're the Criterion, and some people think that the Criterions are the high end pricey ones. They're really not. When you get into the higher priced barrels, you're talking a Daniel Defense. It's a Cold Hammer Forged, chrome lined. Centurion Arms, companies like that. So low tier is $75 to $200, mid tier is $200 to $280, and the high tier is $280 to $710. Okay, so we have the basics of the upper receiver group. Now let's talk about the gas block. You need a gas block. So the gas blocks can be anywhere from, for the low tiers, they're $10 to $100. The mid tier, they're $100 to $175, and then the high tier is $175 to $225. And the examples that I'm showing you here is a standard gas block, either phosphate or nitride. The second one is an adjustable gas block. In some cases, you might want an adjustable gas block. And if you really want to be super cool and you want to have adjustment on the fly, the rifle speed adjustable gas block, they are the higher priced ones, but they're really good, and you have complete controllability of what you're doing. If you're swapping out between ammo and magazines, you literally can twist the rifle speed gas block and adjust it on the fly. Okay, so let's move on to the gas tube. Gas tubes, really, all of them are stainless, and here's the price points on it. The low price point is anywhere from, they can be from low all the way to the higher end, which is $85. So you're looking at anywhere from $10 to $25 for a stainless gas tube. And it could be plain stainless, or it could be nitride coated. It could be melanite or QPQ. Nitride, melanite, and QPQ are all the same thing. Now, when you get into the expensive gas tube, they are the Inconel. And if you're going to be running full auto and hard use, if I was going to build somebody a gun that was going to be a duty weapon in a high combat situation, I would put an Inconel gas tube in it, because the gas tube is the weakest link in your gas system on your rifle. The gas tube will go before anything else goes. So keep that in mind. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is the muzzle device, the flash hider or the brake. So the examples I'm showing here are an A2 flash hider, a muzzle brake, and then a Surefire War Comp. Low pricing for these bad boys are $20 to $50. The mid price is $50 to $100, and then the high price point is $100 to $200. The A2 flash hider, that's showing an example of what a lower price point flash hider would be. Then the muzzle brake, they can run anywhere from 50 to $100, and the higher end is a muzzle device that allows you to put a suppressor on a weapon, a quick connect type connection point on your rifle. Word of advice about a muzzle brake: if you go to a range with a muzzle brake indoor, everybody's going to hate you because they are loud. Everything comes out the side, and it's ridiculous. I don't like them. I don't have muzzle brakes on any of my weapons or anything like that. I do have quick connect muzzle devices on my rifles, and they're kind of expensive, but they do a job, and you're going to pay for what they do. Okay, so keep that in mind. The next thing is and a lot of people overlook it, is the charging handle. So charging handle price points are, from the low price point is $18 to $30. The mid price point is $30 to $90, and then the high point or high tier is $90 to $150. And I'm showing examples. The first example is a mil spec. It's 70-75 charging handle. You don't want a 60-61. They are way too flexible, and you will not like it. The mid price point, I showed an example using the Breek charging handle. I like them. I don't have one. I've played around with them. They're kind of cool, but personally, I like the Radian Raptor charging handles. It's, in my opinion, I have friends that have the Geissele. I have friends that have I actually have a Bravo company charging handle. I like it. I would put it into the mid price point, but for the money, you cannot beat the Radian Raptor charging handle. They're roughly $75 to $90. If you can find them on sale for $75, buy it. I basically have Radian Raptor charging handles in all my rifles, and to me, it's probably the best upgrade that you can do to your rifle, besides some other things that I would talk about in another video. Okay, so we've talked about all the components for the lower receiver group and the upper receiver group. We talked about the pricing tiers, low, mid to high. So what I have done is I created a median cost. I went through all the prices, and I basically figured what the halfway point was between all the different prices, in the tiers, in the low and the high. And for the lower receiver group, using the median price for everything, it comes out to $405. So that could be plus or minus a little bit, but it's going to be relatively close. For the upper receiver group, now keep in mind, I said that the barrel and the bolt carrier group, I went a little bit on the higher end. I didn't go to the high end, but I went mid-level plus, right? That way you understand why the price is a little bit higher. For the upper receiver group, it comes out to about $1,100. So total cost to build your rifle with the components would be roughly $1,500. Now that's not taking into consideration the shipping for all the different components and everything else. And the sites that I actually used, I went to PSA, I used Joe Bob Outfitters, I used Brownells, what was the other one? AR15 discounts, I think. I used like 6 or 7 different distributors to find the prices and everything that I did. And these are retail prices on all this stuff, guys. So if you're going through someone like me that'll get you price breaks and stuff like that, it might not be that bad. So it's a little bit more than $1,150, or I'm sorry, $1,350 that we agreed would be the average cost for the AR-15, specifically if you build it. Now, that $1,500 does not include the $150 that you added for the tools. So you're at $1,650 right now. So really, is it more cost effective to buy a rifle that's already built or to build one? And my honest opinion, from experience and everything else, I would say if you have the tools, if you have the ability, you can shop around and get good deals on things, and you potentially could build the rifle that you want. And that's the beautiful thing about building your own rifle. You can pick and choose what components you put in it. Remember I talked about how the Radian Raptor charging handle was my favorite? I mean, they're basically $100 for a charging handle. You can do the same thing with the $20 mil-spec charging handle, but I like the way the Radian feels. To me, it's the best upgrade besides the trigger, bolt carrier group, or the barrel that you can do on a rifle. So yeah, so you're $1,650 to build your own rifle, and you got shipping fees that you have to add into that. And the best thing to do is try to find as much components as you can from one distributor and pay for shipping one time instead of trying to order a lower here, an upper from here, and try to break it out into different components, and because you're going to add up shipping is not cheap. You're looking at anywhere from, it could be $10, $15 up to $50 just depending on what you're having shipped. I'm not a huge brand whore at all by any means. I think that if you wanted, this is just my opinion now, I think if you wanted to build your own rifle and you didn't want to have to worry about getting the parts or anything like that, the best thing that you could do, and I highly recommend going and looking right now, is go to Palmetto State Armory. I'm not a shill for Palmetto State Armory. They don't pay me a dime. I buy quite a bit of stuff from not only them, but from everybody. And if you go to their Saber rifle line and go specifically to their uppers, they have, right now, they have a PSA Saber forged 16-inch FN Code Hammer Forged chrome lined mid-length gas system upper receiver for $800. Now, ordering all the components and everything else, mid-level price, $1,100. They have it for $800. It's just the upper receiver. You don't have to be a big fan of PSA or anything like that, but you should be a big fan of FN barrels, because FN barrels are what are used in the 240s and 249s the military uses, and they're badass barrels. They really are. And it comes with a very good bolt carrier group. Go and check them out. Don't take my word for it. So there's $800. I'm going to add that in the cart just to see what that looks like. So there's the $800. Let's go back. And can we find a lower receiver in there? You could do a Saber. You could do a complete Saber lower receiver for $269. That's got a B5 buttstock, a B5 grip. It's got what trigger does it have in it? It's got their two-stage Saber trigger, which I'm pretty sure it's a Schmid, and the new Schmid two-stage triggers, or they're diamond are DLC coated, so they're very slick, very smooth. So for for $1,100 from Palmetto State, you basically could have a complete custom-built gun that you didn't have to put together. You didn't have to worry about it. But the caveat, and I'll say this before I close out, when you build something, you know how it's put together. When you buy something, I highly recommend, and I tell everybody I know that buys guns and things like that, take the gun apart and check everything. Make sure that it's been assembled properly. Make sure it's lubed properly. Make sure that it's function checked, because there's been things come out of different factories, and it doesn't matter what brand, BSA, Daniel Defense, hell, Knights. They have good days and they have bad days, and sometimes some of that shit just slips out and it gets out to the public. So it's always to do your due diligence and check and make sure that everything is the way that's supposed to be before you go and you shoot and have something that you're going to have to depend on, or maybe have to depend on. But yeah, you want to make the best choice that you can for your money. I'm adding it in the cart right now. Let's see what the total would be. So for $1,145, shipping is $50. So $1,200, and we're kind of right into that same standpoint of the cost versus build thing. If I was, like I said, if if I was going to buy an assembled weapon, it would either be a BCM or a Geisley. I'm not going to buy a Daniel Defense, and I'm not going to buy a Knights. I'm not, as I said, I wouldn't have a Knights stuck up my ass sideways like a Barrett. So anyway, that's just my opinion. But I just wanted to put this information out there for you to take into consideration if you're wanting to buy or to build. To me, I mean, if you don't want to work on it, buy one. If you don't have a problem with working on it, you have any type of mechanical inclination, and you don't have issue with spending some money for some tools and taking your time, build one. So it's not a lose either way. One's not a win either way. It's subjective to what you want to do. And remember, it's your money. You spend it the way that you want to spend it. All right. So this is Jeff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.